In the psychiatric hospital, a strange night unfolded. Suddenly, almost all the patients began acting weirdly all at once. Some screamed desperately, some had seizures, and others were so scared they couldn't move. The workers were baffled. It sounded like pure chaos. Then, after 5 intense minutes, everything stopped abruptly. The patients calmed down as if nothing had happened. The staff couldn't explain what had caused the bizarre episode. Some thought it was collective hysteria, while others feared something supernatural, but no one had answers. The incident remained a haunting mystery, leaving everyone in the hospital unsettled by the inexplicable events of that night. In 1928, a young boy named Walter Collins disappeared from his home in Los Angeles. Months later, a boy claiming to be Walter was found in Illinois and brought back home. However, Walter's mother, Christine Collins, insisted the boy was not her son, despite police pressure to accept him. Subsequent investigations confirmed the boy was an imposter. The real Walter Collins was never found. Christine's relentless search uncovered a connection to the Wineville chicken coop murders, where Gordon Northcott was convicted of murdering several boys, but he denied killing Walter. Despite extensive efforts and numerous leads, Walter's fate remains unknown, making his disappearance one of the most haunting and unresolved cases in American history. 2 students were spending time alone in a car on a deserted road. When they were ready to leave, the car wouldn't start, which worried the girlfriend. The boyfriend offered to walk for help and instructed her to hide under a blanket in the back of the car, staying out of sight and not leaving until he returned. Time passed, and he did not return. Soon, she heard a tapping noise on the roof of the car, which continued throughout the night as she remained hidden. As the morning light appeared, she heard footsteps approaching the car and a man's voice calling out to her. It was the local sheriff. He instructed her to exit the car and walk to the waiting sheriff's car down the road. As she walked toward the sheriff's car, she glanced back one last time, searching for any sign of her boyfriend. But from that point on, he was nowhere to be found. To this day, there has been no trace of him, and no one has heard from him since that night. In 1985, a town was shaken by the brutal murder of 16-year-old twins, Rebecca and Rachel Powell. Found in the woods with identical stab wounds to the heart, their bodies were posed as if in prayer. Despite thorough investigations, no evidence or suspects emerged. Rumors pointed to their controlling father, Dr. Henry Powell, but nothing was proven. The case grew cold, leaving the town haunted by the mystery. Each year, candles are lit in the woods to remember the twins, keeping their tragic story alive. When I was a kid, I was at my friend's house one night and his father offered to drive me home. He had a pickup truck, so he let my friend and I ride in the back, enjoying the wind on our faces. Halfway home, in the middle of nowhere with only grass fields around us, we noticed something strange in the sky. It was coming down fast, and we were both shocked and scared, unsure of what it could be. As it got closer, we saw it was a large ball of lights that suddenly fell into the field. The lights turned off immediately upon impact, and eerily there was no sound at all, despite the apparent force with which it landed. My friend's father stopped the truck suddenly. He climbed out and came to the back where we sat. Staring at us with a serious expression, he said, "Do not ever tell this to anyone. You kids hear me. Forget this ever happened." We continued our journey in silence. To this day, I wonder what fell into that field and why his father was so insistent about keeping it a secret. Late one night, police received a 911 call from a crying child who said she was alone and someone was trying to get into the house. The call suddenly went silent. The police rushed to the address and found the front door slightly open. They searched the house but found it empty with no signs of a struggle. The family photo on the wall was covered in dust, suggesting no one had lived there for months. Neighbors confirmed the house had been vacant for a long time. Yet, the 911 call had come from the house's landline, which was still connected. To this day, the mystery of the crying child remains unsolved, leaving the officers haunted by the unanswered call for help. Jenny was a mom who always warned her daughter to steer clear of manholes. But one day, the daughter accidentally stepped on one, and it broke. She fell inside and yelled for help, crying desperately, saying she was okay but scared because she saw something spooky standing nearby. Then, She suddenly stopped talking. Firefighters rushed to rescue her, but when they got her out, she looked terrified and couldn't speak anymore. Even after looking into it, they never figured out what she saw down there. Sadly, she never spoke again. In a fog-shrouded town, an ancient church stood abandoned at the edge of town. The locals whispered about a haunting presence inside, but one dark evening, a curious young woman named Emily decided to investigate. With only a flashlight, Emily entered the old church. Inside, she found strange scratch marks on the pews and walls, like desperate warnings. As she climbed the stairs to the belfry, she encountered a shadowy figure with glowing eyes, which screamed a chilling, otherworldly cry. Panicked, Emily fled the church and ran home. Though she escaped, she couldn't forget the terrifying figure. In the days that followed, strange occurrences plagued the town. Whispers in the night, doors creaking open, and phantom footsteps. The town was left questioning what had been awakened within the church and whether its eerie presence would resurface again. In a quiet town deep in Ireland's countryside, 5 people vanished one evening. It was like any other day until they all just disappeared into thin air. Their families were scared and told the police everything. But even after looking everywhere, they found no clues. Days passed, then months, but the mystery stayed unsolved. Then, something strange came up. All the families mentioned getting a silent phone call on the same day their loved ones disappeared. It sounded weird, but maybe it was a big clue. To this day, people still wonder if those calls have something to do with the vanishing act. Or was it just another strange coincidence? The town's still waiting for answers. In a small town nestled deep in the woods, the sun rarely reached the forest floor, casting an eerie shadow over the old, abandoned mine that stood on the outskirts. One night in November, a chilling cry echoed through the streets, causing even the bravest to shudder. It came from the mine, long rumored to be cursed. The townspeople avoided it at all costs. The next morning, they found something horrifying, a bloodstained shoe at the mine's entrance belonging to young Abby, who'd vanished the night before. Her parents swore she had been home safe in bed. A search party combed the woods but found no trace of her. Some speculated she'd been lured by whispers from the mine. Others believed she'd stumbled upon a long-buried secret. Despite the town's best efforts, Abby was never found, and her disappearance remains an unsolved mystery. Those who dare to go near the mine say they hear faint whispers of a little girl crying for help. In a quiet town, a family of 4 vanished from their home on a cold November night in 1983. The Thompsons were well known and liked in the community. One evening, neighbors noticed that their house, usually bustling with life, was eerily silent. The lights were on, but no one answered the door. Police arrived to find a pot of stew still simmering on the stove, the TV playing a show, and the table set for dinner. The family's car was in the driveway, and their jackets hung by the door. No signs of struggle, no note, nothing disturbed except the family was gone. Despite exhaustive searches and endless theories, the Thompsons were never found. Their disappearance remains one of the most unsettling and enduring mysteries. One evening, as I settled into bed, I heard faint scratching sounds coming from the walls. At first, I dismissed it as mice, but the noises grew louder each night. They started to follow me from room to room, always staying just out of sight. One night, I decided to investigate. With a flashlight in hand, I followed the sound to the living room. The scratching seemed to come from behind the wallpaper. As I peeled it back, I discovered old, faded writing. The message read, "Get out, I'm still here." My blood ran cold. I never found out who or what was behind the message. The scratching continued, and I moved out shortly after. The house remains empty and no one ever dared to uncover the mystery of the wall scratches. The thought that something was trapped in the walls still haunts me. I was driving through the winding mountain roads at night. My wife and I found ourselves pursued by a car hurtling toward us at an alarming speed. Concerned for our safety, I eased off the gas to allow it to pass. But as soon as the car was about to overtake us, the car vanished into thin air. It completely disappeared. It was suddenly a silence as my wife looked at me extremely scared. We exchanged a wordless glance, a shiver running down our spines, and we still don't know what happened to the vanished car. Matt, A young guy full of curiosity decided to explore an old German bunker from the Second World War hidden in the forest. As he went deeper inside, the darkness grew thicker, and suddenly strange smoke appeared out of nowhere, swirling around him. Then, in the middle of this eerie fog, he heard a whisper close to his ear, saying, "Save me." Terrified, Matt spun around, but nobody was there. He searched everywhere, but found no one. Scared out of his wits, he hurriedly left the bunker, still puzzled about who or what could have whispered to him in that spooky place. One chilly night, a school trip turned into a nightmare. The fifth graders were gathered around a bonfire in the woods roasting marshmallows. Suddenly, a star seemed to get bigger, falling towards the earth. At first, everyone thought it was a shooting star, but it got closer and brighter until it crashed into the woods nearby. Curious and scared, the group ran to the impact site, finding a smoking crater but no object. As they stood there, the kids began to feel a strange tingling on their skin, which soon turned into a painful burning sensation. The teachers quickly took the kids to the hospital, where the doctors treated their mysterious burns, which lasted for 2 weeks before finally fading away. Strangely, the teachers didn't feel anything at all. Despite many investigations, no one could explain what caused the burns or why only the kids were affected. To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. The kids, now grown-ups, still remember, and no one knows what really happened that night in the woods.